can see here I'm prepping the Resin Figurine, which is the Tiki one, with a prep wash. It's a water-based cleaner, and I'm using a Scotch pad as well. Once you've scuffed up the surface and used this prep wash, which you actually dilute with water, it'll just give a good abrasive surface for the paint to stick. You can see now I've rinsed it with water. All of it needs to come off. Now I did rinse the skull because, as you can see, there's about 3 videos that we're doing. So now I'm just, after basing it with white, I'm now basing it with a yellow mixed with flesh tone to get that sort of nice wood grain base coat. So it's not a brown, but it's just, yeah, as I said, flesh tone mixed with a few drops of yellow and a bit of white in there too, so you get coverage. I'm now using a brown mix, so thinned out brown. This is all urethane paints, and it's basically just thin enough so that I can get all my detail, but thick enough so that it covers. So with this color, you shade all the tones and you know, shape all the face and everything of the tiki. You can see now I've switched to a brush, so I've put my airbrush down and using a brown mix that I've just used acrylic based paints, just artist paints. I'm using the fine brush to cut in all the detail, and then I'm dry brushing back over it using a mix of a rag, just a nice clean dry rag, to wipe off the excess, and all of the rest will remain in the gaps of the resin figure, so the detail that's already in there. And I'm just using that mix, which is fairly thin, so thin enough so it doesn't go dry straight away, because you want it to be thin so you can either dry brush it back off or rub it off. So you can see here I'm just following the grains just to get a depth, just to get the depth in those sections. And this is on the rear of the figure. So these figures are actually, they can be made up as gear knobs. So they come as blanks, and you can then pre-drill the bases to suit whatever gear knob that you need to fit it to. So you can see here I'm still working all the grain. The more you do this, the more detail you're going to add. So if it's a bit uneven, that looks cool because it's got to look like timber. So we're just doing a combo of using the paintbrush and the airbrush. You can see even the top section I'd airbrushed in prior. So yeah, that was just all done with that red-brown mix. So again, I'm just working the top of where the tiki's head is. And now I'm switching back to my brush, and I'm just going to brush in some of the areas I couldn't reach easily with the airbrush. Okay, now using white in my airbrush, so relatively thin, this is a House of Colour white, I'm just hitting all of the white areas. So because it's 3D already, you can see which areas would be exposed to the light, so those are the areas that you're going to hit with the white. Don't overdo the white, it's only to make it look more three-dimensional. You can see now I've switched to a black-brown mix, so just a thinned out black, and I've put a few drops of brown in there, just so it's not stark black. And I'm using the rag as just basically to make it easier to work with. And I'm cutting in all of the detail. So similar to what you did with your brown earlier, you're just deepening those shadows. So think of the object as a 3D object and try and bring it to life. So don't overkill it. Just control the airbrush nice and fine. If you have to, drop the pressure down. And if you've got a Iwata micron with the adjustment like what I've got here, you can actually drop the pressure on the front of your airbrush on that micro valve. So they're really handy. So you can see I'm just deepening all the shadows, working on the top of the tiki's head now, and I'm just checking over the artwork, make sure I'm all happy with it. So basically now I'm just cutting in a bit more detail, but you can play around with it as much as you like and get it as 3D as possible. You can see here the completed tiki. This is the front view and all of the detail and where the highlights sit and the shapes and shadows. You can see the red-brown, so it's blended out further than the black. So the black is obviously the deepest part, and all of the dry brushing now on the back here, you can see how I've wiped it out and it's remained in those areas. So have fun, play around with the brush and the airbrush to create the most realistic effect that you can. And these photos were taken before the clear, so you can clear with urethane clear.